Miami was looking to climb up the standings in a huge matchup versus the Knicks. Both teams made runs throughout the game, but ultimately came down to the Knicks going on a 10-1 run to push away from the Heat late in the fourth quarter, even with Jimmy Butler back in the lineup, resulting in another disappointing loss and another wasted opportunity. We'll break it all down on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day and for subscribing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Basketball GM. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NBA GM and managing your own basketball franchise, then this game is for you. To download the game, just visit ultimatebasketballgm.com, pick it up on your app store. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in all caps in game. Recording this after the Heat's 101-92 loss to the Knicks on Wednesday night. We're going to hand out blame pie, talk about Duncan Robinson's resurrection, and update our culture bracket in a minute. But the Heat have now lost 3 straight games. A few days ago, they were in 6th place. They had a chance to distance themselves or even move up to 5th with wins against the Nets, Raptors, and Knicks. Instead, they lose to the Nets, Raptors, and Knicks. All tough opponents, all on the road. But still all tough losses considering just everything that was on the line for this team. I think maybe the most concerning thing is, David, offense seemed like it was turning a corner and trending in the right direction after the All-Star break, has scored 100, 92, and 92 points in those 3 losses. Defense continues to slide. So does the Heat's playoff positioning. What looks wrong to you, David?
A little bit of everything. The defense has been really porous. The offense, as you said, not great, and you're not getting the kind of production that you need from your top bucket getters. Going, what was it, 12 of 30, a combined 12 of 30 from Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Victor Oladipo, who did wind up playing significant minutes today. You got some nice contributions from Duncan, as you alluded to. You also had Tyler contributing, although he shot somewhat inefficiently. He couldn't seem to get it going. So there wasn't a lot of offense there, but there isn't a lot of transition defense either. They were able to force the Knicks into early turnovers, and then that led to a little bit of a spark in the offense, but it wasn't something they could sustain. We should point out also that the New York Knicks were without Julius Randle for the second half. He wound up getting an ankle injury after he landed on Bam Adebayo's foot, twisting his ankle, trying to pull down that rebound. He wound up shooting one of the next 2 free throws as a foul was called in that play, and then wound up going into the locker room and never emerging from there. So who knows if he'll miss any time moving forward. But the fact is that the Heat couldn't capitalize.
Yeah, still no update on Julius Randle. Like you said, hit those free throws in order to stay in the game because that's the rule, but didn't come back. So obviously it's bad enough for him to stay out the entire game. But it wasn't like he was killing the Heat anyway. It was actually one of the most inefficient nights he's had a long time. He was 1 of 5, and by the time he left, the score was tied at 37. I think it was when he left the game. So, tonight's game, like it actually felt like this one was winnable for the Heat. I didn't feel like they played all that poorly. Like they were playing pretty clean on offense. They just, like you said, their shot makers weren't making shots. This game was just neck and neck the entire time. And he tweeted this in the third quarter, or it was at the end of the third quarter going into the fourth when the score was tied at 87. I was like, it just feels like whichever team puts together a little run here, that'll be enough to go ahead and win the game. And that's exactly what happened, except the Knicks went on an 8-0 run as soon as basically Jimmy Butler checked back in with 6.5 minutes left. So this can't be like, Spo didn't play Bam or Jimmy enough, because in those non-Bam and Jimmy minutes in the beginning of the fourth, the Heat actually took a 1-point lead in those minutes. But Jimmy checks back in, not necessarily his fault, but the Knicks just started making shots. The Heat's transition defense was just gone, non-existent. That 8-0 run was a layup, 2 dunks right down the lane, and a couple of free throws. That was the run that basically tilted the game away from Miami, because in today's NBA, an 8-point lead, an 8-0 run is like nothing. Like any team can overcome that in today's age of 3-point shot making, all this stuff, except for Miami Heat, apparently, who just have a hard time making shots all the time. So that was basically it.
Yeah, no, that's well said, prescient on your point there regarding that last second run. It was weird because the first quarter and maybe even part of the second quarter was almost completely defined by runs. The Knicks wound up getting off to an 8-0 run. The Heat responded with a 14-0 run of theirs, kind of evened. And then, of course, the Knicks wound up having another run. Then the Heat going on another run. It was just back and forth early on with these incredible runs defining the offense. And then after Julius winds up going out of the game, it winds up slowing down, or at least the Knicks wind up reassessing how they were playing the game to a certain degree, and the Heat were kind of responding in kind, getting some points here and there, but no team really stretching out their lead beyond just a handful of points. It was a very even game, to your point. And then Miami just fell apart there once Jimmy got back in the game. I'm not sure that you can pinpoint to any one thing. I look at that 8-0 run that you pointed to, and there were some
pinpoint the defense.
Decent shots. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not. I guess that's not fair to your point. They turned out, like Duncan Robinson had a bad turnover, and that led to a dunk. Jimmy Butler had a bad, sort of weird, kind of hoisted up a mid-range shot that was not a great look in the shot clock. The offense just stalled. So yeah, the offense stalled, and that led to easy points for the Knicks. And the thing is that the Heat, like, that's not new, right? Like, that's been the Miami Heat all year. Basically, most of last year too. It wasn't an awesome offense last year. They just made 3-pointers. But this year they were getting points of their defense. And now that the defense has slipped in a way that I don't think anybody expected, that now they're not creating those turnover opportunities, led to buckets in the other end. They're just, I mean, you look it up, they're not forcing turnovers at the same rate. They're basically, since the All-Star break, they've forced 2 fewer turnovers per game than before the All-Star break. They were one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the league in forcing opponent turnovers. Now they're basically average, and that's just not good enough when your offense is in the mud every single night and your defense isn't all that good. And they were a great rebounding team before. They've been out rebounded the last 4 games by 42 rebounds in the last 4 games combined. That's awful. I mentioned the shooting and the lack of scoring. They shot 44% tonight, 40% against Toronto, 47.5% against Brooklyn, which wasn't bad, but wasn't enough. This was a team that at least had an identity. I don't think the identity was like working consistently enough, and you understand why they tried to change that identity. But now it feels like a team completely without an identity because they're not forcing the turnovers. They're not great defensively. They're still bad offensively. I'm just not sure what this team does well at this point.
Nothing. I think that's the bottom line.
Great.
No, it really is. I mean, they're not scoring well. They're not scoring efficiently. They don't shoot well. They don't defend well. I mean, they were forcing turnovers early on, although a lot of those were self-imposed. 11 first-half turnovers for the Knicks. Some of those because of some great Heat defense, and some of those just because Randall was bobbling the ball. There was a bad entry pass here and there, just some bad passes down the perimeter. It seems about right. And then only 4 in the second half, where Miami just seemed to kind of take their foot off the gas defensively for whatever reason, not understanding that that's what was going to help them lead to easy buckets. So and there were some miscues from Duncan. There were some bad plays from Tyler Herro.
The defense. Can we stay on the defense thing? Because I texted this to you, and I didn't look up the stats, but it just feels like they take fewer charges. That transition defense is nearly as good as it was last year. They're hustling in the same way, and I feel like of all the ways that they missed PJ Tucker this year, and that they have missed sort of a consistent presence of Kyle Lowry this year, that might be the main way. Is just those guys that are willing to get down on defense. They're communicative. They tell everybody where to be. You mentioned the miscue from Duncan Robinson. Like, there was a bad one that Bam was pleading with Duncan Robinson. Like, why did you leave that guy so open? And Duncan Robinson didn't really seem to have an answer, at least according to the broadcast. And so there's those things, but it's also just like the sheer force of will stuff that this team doesn't have. Like these teams, like I said, PJ Tucker just willing to put on a slide and take that charge. I just see that less and less than ever.
Those are momentum shifting plays, and Miami just hasn't had enough of them over the course of the season. Like, those are inspirational plays where you need that kind of energy over the slog of a long regular season. You've got 82 games here. You don't have an identity. You play good defense to start, and you kind of start tapering off after the All-Star break. But even in the wins since the All-Star break, we've seen some of those big plays. And over the last 3 games, they just have not happened at all. It just seems like Miami has given up to a certain degree, or is just not willing to put their bodies in the line to the same level that they once did. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know that they have an answer there. I know a lot of people want to just
it's easy to I think to sacrifice when you're winning and the team isn't winning. And I guess the response
Yeah,
would be
but
you're not winning
that's
because you're not doing that stuff.
yeah, that's the chicken and the egg argument there. It's
Yeah.
just like if they'd win more if they made some of those plays, and so it kind of
I
feeds
think
into
basketball
itself.
players are smart. I just they are so intuitive and they kind of know when the team has it or not. And I just feel like the vibes on this team have just not been the same as they were last year. I don't know that they've been bad. I think bad is a very strong word to put on a locker room, but like last year I felt like the vibes were really strong, and this year they just don't feel as strong.
No,
And
I
that's
think
it.
that's
Maybe
fair.
when those vibes aren't as strong, you're not getting 6'2" guys throwing themselves in front of 280-pound 7-footers. I don't know. Let's talk a little bit more about Duncan Robinson because he played first half minutes in the first time it would seem like 3 years tonight. We'll also hand out some blame pie, but that's going to happen next. First, today's episode of Locked On Heat is brought to you by Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. Pull it up here. Look, here's the thing about Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. It's the coolest game I've played in a long time. I would be a great NBA general manager. As it turns out, it's not all that easy. That's true. I'm not just reading that from the copy. I actually really do think I would be a good NBA general manager. You've had the same thought and you've fantasized about managing your own basketball franchise. Go and download Ultimate Pro Basketball GM right now. The game allows you to manage every strategic aspect of a franchise, playing through seasons, leading your franchise and fans to glory as you build a historic dynasty. In the simulation, you're responsible for dealing with challenging personalities from players and coaches, hiring the right coaches and assistants, creating and training players, making all of your draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft, all the ups and downs of multiple seasons, all of this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Pro Basketball GM is completely free and it's playable offline. Play on the go, play on a plane, as I did on my way back from Montana last weekend for 3 straight hours, as you want and when you want to. Like I said, I'm addicted to this game. I could play it for 2 hours without even realizing 2 hours went by. Easy. That's happened now multiple times since I got this game. Locked On Heat listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise using the pro code Locked On in the game store. So make sure that you check it out. Download the game. Just visit probasketballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up on your app store. That's probasketballgm.com. Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. Start your dynasty today. Locked is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please do subscribe. That smell you smell is a smell of another sauce. Time to hand out some blame pie. Where to begin with this one? This one is
It's hard to pinpoint on
challenging.
one player. Yeah,
Yeah.
that really does. I don't think there wasn't one player that was particularly bad. Everybody just struggled throughout the night. Like even Bam, only shooting 40% from the field. He's certainly going to get some blame pie there because only 10 field goal attempts. And you have to give credit to Isaiah Hartenstein, who wound up doing, I think, a better job than either Mitchell Robinson or Julius Randle would have done had he been able to stay in the game, of just making things uncomfortable for Adebayo. But that's on Bam. Like he wasn't looking to take that shot. He wasn't attacking Hartenstein or trying to get into foul trouble. He only wound up taking 2 free throws attempts, missing one of those. So that's, I think you can start with Bam. And I know it feels like perhaps we're picking on him to a certain degree because it felt like he was a big part of why Miami lost to the Toronto Raptors last night. But I think that's a fair start there. Bam, I would say, of the 10 slices of pie that we'll give out, probably deserving of about 3, just because a certain lack of aggression, a certain disinterest. I think even the pointing to Duncan, I rewatched the clip as he sent it to me, and Duncan was out of position. I don't think it was on him necessarily to guard that one perimeter shot that you were alluding to. I don't think it was necessarily like he could have closed out and run towards it, but he might have been called for a foul given his history and the fact that he does get an unfriendly whistle in his favor.
I think it was Duncan's assignment and it's a mistake, but like that's sort of the beauty of having Bam Adebayo is he's so great defensively and so athletic that he makes up for those mistakes. And instead of making up for Duncan's mistake, it kind of felt like he was like, "Why did you make that mistake?"
Right.
He kind of threw his
Which
hands
is very
up.
atypical of Bam, I think.
Exactly. And so, look, I think I'm okay with giving slices of blame pie to Bam Adebayo. 9 points on 10 shots, 11 rebounds. That's just not good enough. And what you were talking about earlier, it just feels like he's struggling with the 7-footers where he wasn't for the longest time this season. It felt like those days were behind him, right? Like he developed that little 15 free throw extended kind of push jumper thing in order to combat the 7-footers. He's said so much publicly multiple times. Like, that's the specific why he developed that shot. And that shot just has, whether it's Jakob Poeltl last night or Mitchell Robinson or Hartenstein tonight, those guys just were all over him. And he's been a little hesitant with the shot, not because he doesn't want to take it, but it's just not quick with it. And it's giving those guys moments to close out on it. And that's the thing with that shot, is you have to be quick with it, because once you're not, like, those guys are long and they can close out in no time. Half a second is all they need to go from an open look to a contested one. And when it's contested with those guys in front of you, you're pretty much screwed, right? And so I don't know what it is with Bam. I wonder if he's just tired from basically carrying this team as long as he has.
I think I would be insane to think that fatigue shouldn't play a part at this point in the season. Like, it is really a long season for these guys. They travel, etc. And I know a lot of people just want to dismiss that, and maybe there's some truth to that. And yet it's still difficult to just try to fight through the physical challenge of a night in, night out schedule. And to that same point that we're talking about, like, if they're going to close out and you're going to be thrown off your repertoire because you have this suddenly large imposing body all over you, well, the argument should have been for Bam, well, that's why you have that kind of speed and quickness. But he's not even looking to counter once that original big just winds up challenging the shot along, within that kind of 15-foot space there. He's not looking to drive past those bigger bodies, and that's exactly where his strength has historically lied. And so I'm a little surprised at the lack of effort, and the only thing I can say is he might be tired.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just any NBA player that's tired with 6 games of the season. It's Bam Adebayo, who has so many responsibilities on defense and now on offense for this team. Like, you understand why he was tired or why he might be tired. The first I noticed this, remember talking about this, that overtime loss in Orlando, that really bad loss, the one that Tyler Herro had food poisoning. And I remarked to you, I think on the show, I'm like, Bam through the game, but I feel like he had food poisoning too, because he looked more lethargic than he ever has. It was maybe one of the kind of lazier Bam games that I've ever seen, one of the defensive performances that I've seen from him. And I don't feel like he's ever really gotten it back, since then. So maybe it was food poisoning. Maybe it was just sheer exhaustion. Like, I get it. It's a lot that this guy's been asked to do. But again, he's asked to do it because somebody has to do it, and he didn't do it. And so that's why he's getting the blame pie tonight. We have to go to Kevin Love.
Yeah.
5 points, 1 of 7 from 3-point range, 4 rebounds, a couple of assists, 16 minutes and 14 seconds. David, that's the fewest amount of minutes Kevin Love has played since he joined the Miami Heat. He hasn't played 20 minutes in the last 3 games. He's not being phased out of the rotation because he's still starting, obviously, but he's playing less and less. And it feels more and more like the Kevin Love thing is not working out for the Heat.
I think that's fair. I think the expectation was that he'd be hitting shots just enough to be able to make up for his lapses in other areas, and still he wind up with a positive plus minus rating of 5. His rebounding was okay
because he played the fewest minutes, probably. Yeah,
maybe, and he played at times, especially in the first quarter when Miami was able to build that original lead and things of that sort.
He was in the starting lineup. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think. He was doing some things well. You got to give credit to Tom Thibodeau here. I think, Robinson is not, he's a great athlete. He's I'm talking about Mitchell Robinson from the Knicks, of course. And he's a guy who's a rim threat. He can dive to the rim, etc. He's a good rebounder, but Love, for all of his age and whatever limitations he has physically, good positional rebounder, knows how to box out, uses his size well. To be able to get a hand on the ball, tip it towards a teammate or something along those lines. And then Thibodeau just wound up saying, you know what? Robinson's not getting any leverage against Love, and he's certainly not going to get it against Bam. That's why Bam started off as well as he did. And then he took Robinson out, kept Hartenstein in, and a lot of that was because of the Randall injury. But at the same time, I think Hartenstein brought a more consistent effort, more willing to close out, more willing to keep balls alive when they're coming off the rim or things of that sort. So I think it was a good switch. Hardenstein wound up playing, I think, the most minutes he has all season. Just a really good game from him. And so without Robinson in there was no opportunity for Love to get back in the game and be able to do the little things that he was doing positively. That's being said, 1 of 7's not going to cut it. Like,
He's got to make the shots. That's his whole point, right? Like all that other stuff is supposed to be like bonus, icing on the cake stuff, right? Oh, the outlet, like 2 or 3 outlet passes a game, it's nice. The rebounding, that could be helpful and stuff. The rebounding has not been helpful. I already read those stats. It's not been great. He has not helped the rebounding at all. Actually, Miami's a worse rebounding team since adding Kevin Love. I don't think that is on Kevin Love, but he hasn't really balanced things out either, right? And that is kind of on Kevin Love. And yeah, and like he came into tonight shooting 29% as a Miami Heat player from 3-point range, and it got worse going 1 of 7 tonight. He missed 6 of his threes tonight, so he gets I think he gets 4. Like you just need something from your starter, and he gave you nothing tonight on a night where you got 16 points from Tyler, 21 from Gabe. It wasn't a great Jimmy Butler game. Maybe we get to him here. He only had 12 points, but you got nothing from one of your starters.
If you're going 3 for Bam, 4 for Love, that's at 7. I feel like 2 for Jimmy and 1 for Tyler. But I think like Oladipo should get a slice too. I'd be willing to take 1 slice away from Kevin Love and giving it to Oladipo just because I think Oladipo, a little bit too much more of the freelancing and not hitting the shots. Like he hit a nice 3 late in the game, and that was too little too late.
Just like Kevin Love, also 1 of 7 from 3-point range. We teased the Duncan Robinson thing. We didn't get to it. I think it's worth getting to. Should he brother rotation going forward, given Miami's offensive struggles? We'll touch on that next here on Locked On Heat. But first, David, tell listeners about our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NCAA tournament is still going strong with the NBA playoffs almost here. Now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers can get a no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000. It's a bonus bet back if your first bet doesn't win. You just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. And then you can bet on everything you want, from the money line, the points scored, the number of threes drained. There's so many different options, and FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Reach Locked On Heat on Twitter, Instagram, email us, lockedonheat@gmail.com. We're going to update our Heat culture bracket here in a second, but let's get to that Duncan Robinson conversation. Max Strus, early out, played just 3 minutes, picked up 3 early fouls, and that was pretty much the end of his night. Wasn't doing anything on the court. He didn't even take a shot in those 3 minutes. But yeah, 3 fouls in 3 minutes can get you in Spo's rotation. Just ask Duncan Robinson. That's why he's not been part of the rotation very much. Has not logged first half minutes. It's been like 3 years. I really don't remember the last time Duncan Robinson got for real first half minutes, not just like a kind of token, hey, end of a shot, end of the buzzer, end of a quarter. We need
the broadcast said it was his third most minutes this season. And I was trying to struggle to think when he's played 20 plus minutes all year, but I guess he's had a couple of other opportunities. But yeah, to answer the question about whether or not he gets more playing time moving forward, I think it's worth breaking glass because this is an emergency part here. And there's no denying that he's just the best shooter on the team. Like maybe Tyler gets more opportunities, and certainly Max has caught fire. And I was there in the first half watching him take on the Brooklyn Nets by himself, where he scored 23 points, most ever in a half for him. And yet, he's still prone to these games where he doesn't do anything well because, Max struggles defensively. He still does. And I know we've had this argument for a while now. Last season, when he was inserted in the starting lineup, he's not necessarily a much better defender than Duncan Robinson. He gets caught in the cookie jar a lot. He tries to gamble. He makes plays occasionally, and then sometimes he just gets lost on defense. So they both have their defensive issues. I think we've seen enough from Eric Spoelstra where he trusts Max Strus more. So I would think that Duncan deserves more playing time, but I don't think he's going to get it because Spo is just too stubborn and his commitment to Max Strus at this point.
Maybe we'll get something along the lines of what we saw last year when Max was to kind of edge Duncan Robinson out of the rotation and obviously ultimately out of the starting lineup, where Spo just kind of throws them both out there in the first half, figure out which one on hot hand, and then rides that one for the second half, right?
It's possible.
Maybe that's something where, and I'm with you, it is a break glass in case of emergency type of situation. My offense can score, right? And that was fine when the defense was awesome, but now the defense is awesome either. Now the defense can't stop anybody, especially in transition and all these things. So might as well throw him out there. He was 4 of 6 tonight from 3-point range. That was
looked
way
good.
better than what anybody else put up other than Gabe Vincent, who was 4 or 5. So they need shooting. They do. And you could tell the spacing is different when Duncan Robinson is on the court.
Yeah.
He's still on the scouting report. He's still respected as one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. And that matters. It matters almost as much as actually making the shots, is the space that you create by just being out there.
He needs
And
so
there was
little
one play,
time. Yeah, he needs so
I
little
know.
time to get the shot
There's
off.
one play. He curls off of, I think what was I want to say it was a BAM screen. He curls off of it. G goes, ends up diving towards the basket. And both defenders, it was quickly and one other defender, go right up towards Duncan Robinson. And I don't know that Jimmy Butler's had an easier bucket entire season than that one that he had in the first half when Duncan Robinson was out there. That stuff really matters. And if what the Heat are trying to do is create spacing for me and him, he does it. And Duncan Robinson, look, I don't know if he's a better 3-point shooter than Max Strus. I have no idea. The averages are basically the same over the last couple of years. He does demand more respect from 3-point range than Max Strus does at this point.
Yeah, I think he's just much more comfortable. Yeah, he's a much more comfortable shooter. Having said that, the flip side of it is that everybody seems to light up from an opponent's perspective when they see Duncan out there. Like, they're going to attack him, whether it's just the scouting report regarding his defense. He's a slow white guy. Whatever the mindset is, like Quentin Grimes is like, oh, really? You're going to put Duncan Robinson on me? I'm going to drive past him or look to get that shot going. Like, he could see
he's
that
not
he's
defensively, but to your point, Max isn't either. So you just, whichever one's shooting well is the one that gets in, I guess.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you wouldn't find these moments from Duncan Robinson unless Max really screws the pooch and winds up getting into that incredible foul trouble. Like, that was just
I think I would like to see maybe a reversion back to, let's throw him back out there in the first half. Whichever one has the hot hand gets to ride, because I don't think Strus has done anything to earn that spot in stone at all this year in the rotation. He just hasn't. He's not making shots enough. All right, quickly, let's move on to the Heat culture bracket. Let's update what we got here. Our first matchup. 3 seed Alonzo Mourning versus 14 seed Joel Anthony. This one feels like a tough out for Joel Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, look, it should probably be a lot closer. Joel Anthony, just a guy who had to work so hard to get to this point, and another undrafted player, just another one of those great finds in Heat history, where he winds up being a solid contributor, despite the fact that, look, there's no denying he wasn't a really skilled NBA player. Like, yes, he's skilled in the context of like basketball in general, but as an NBA player, he probably represents the lower 1% in terms of overall skills, his bad hands and things of that sort. And he still carries Heat culture, to your point. You wrote about it, how he's bringing Heat culture to Canada basketball. And that's something to be, admired, in that he still gravitates towards the lessons that he learned in South Florida, the things that helped define his career.
Does he get more points for bringing Heat culture in front office to a different organization than Alonzo Mourning gets for staying in Miami? And I won't say riding the coattails of that ride. I won't say that. I'm not saying that. But does Joel Anthony get more credit for going elsewhere and bringing Heat culture with him than staying put in Miami and sort of basking in the Heat culture and adding to it in the way that Zoe does?
See, but you mean like post career? No, yeah, I think it's just. This is just me being, perhaps a little contrarian here. I think there weren't a lot of opportunities for Zoe. There were very few players over Pat Riley's coaching career that he loved with all his heart, and I kind of felt like I'm almost like a paternal relationship with. There was Irvin, Magic Johnson, of course, and then there was Alonzo Mourning. Those are probably the 2 players that he loved the most on a personal level. Maybe you could probably make an argument for Pat Ewing too, but I think it was mostly just Johnson and Mourning. And so there was always going to be a piece carved out somewhere for Alonzo Mourning. I can never No, never. I can never get over the fact that Alonzo Mourning left in free agency, and somewhat selfishly too, and a really terrible decision at a point when Miami was going to have to rebuild, and he wasn't the player he ever was. So I would hold that against him. I personally, I don't mind an upset. I think Joel Anthony is the culture carrier to a large degree. He deserves the call. I can't get away from Alonzo Mourning and everything he meant to this organization during those first years when Pat Riley was implementing the culture to begin with. So it's still Zoe.
How many rings does Alonzo Mourning have, the player?
Just one, 2006, thanks to Dwayne Wade. Yeah.
I'm with it.
Uh,
I'm with the upset. I'm down. This isn't the most talented Heat player in Heat history bracket. It's who embodied Heat culture the most during their time in Miami. I'm okay. I don't think that, honestly, here's a hot take. I don't think this is even a conversation if Alonzo Mourning doesn't rejoin the front office after retirement. If he just comes here, chases a ring, gets that ring in 2006, and then retires and does whatever Alonzo Mourning wants to do after retirement, doesn't rejoin the Heat and as a member of the front office, I think this is a landslide victory for Joel Anthony. I think it's a landslide. And the fact that he's in Canada, of all places, trying to bring Heat culture there,
right.
I think that speaks a lot. I think you and I are on the same page here. I think Joel Anthony just upset Alonzo Mourning.
I'm fair with it. I really am. It's a narrow victory, perhaps, but I'm okay with it too.
All right, let's do it. All right,
let's do it.
Wow, didn't see that coming. Joel Anthony moves on. Wow,
Twitter's not going to be happy with it, but that's okay.
That's okay. You got the Twitter vote yesterday. They sided with you, Goran Dragic, over Shaquille O'Neal. So you're 1-0 on Twitter so far. 13 seed Eric Reed takes on number 6 seed Jimmy Butler. Wow. What a night to do this one. This was a good Eric Reed broadcast night, I thought. He always brings it at MSG.
Yeah, I mean, I think he always brings it, period. I look, it's, he's been through the ups and downs. He's been there from day one, starting off as a color commentator and then doing play-by-play, a more natural spot for him. And he's done it all. He's seen everything. It's hard to go against it, but, Jimmy, maybe I'm romanticizing the bubble to a huge degree here, but the things that we've seen from him in the playoffs and over the first 3.5 seasons of his Heat tenure, can't take those away from him. It's got to be Jimmy Butler.
Eric Reed shows up every day, hardly ever misses a game. He's got a better attendance record than Jimmy Butler does in terms of games. I think that's part of Heat culture. He's prepared. He's polished. He's experienced. He goes to pregame press conferences, which is not a thing a lot of play-by-play guys do, by the way. That's sort of those are like the up echelon kind of guys, It's still Jimmy Butler, but I just wanted to give Eric Reed his props, but it's still Jimmy Butler. Sorry, Eric Reed. It was a good run.
It's tough. Look, and trying to think that even as I'm talking about it, like he's gone through so many different color guys there, whether it was, Dr. Jack Ramsey,
adaptability.
Ed Pinkney, Ed
Fiorentino.
Pinkney was there for Tony Fiorentino. Of course, they had a great run. John Crotty. I mean, like he's done it all. Ruth Riley, like he's been such a steady mainstay there. Yeah. It's a lot closer. This is really getting down to the nitty gritty here. You can make arguments for either one. Yeah, let's go with Jim.
Do you want to just give it to Eric Reed or no? That just doesn't feel right.
I can't. I'm sure. I'm sure nobody. Maybe they'll tag him on Twitter or something like that. But he's not going to tell us about it and be pissed off.
Let Eric Reed know that he lost to Jimmy Butler in our bracket.
There you go.
3 seed Bam Adebayo versus 10 seed Keith Atkins. New versus old. Here, this is tough. Keith Atkins, man.
This is
that's not the 10 seed Bam wanted to face.
No. I'm going with Keith Atkins, man.
Wow. I can't.
Yeah.
Bam got the selfie. He's got physical proof.
Yeah, because Keith Atkins is always there. Like if they needed him to suit up tomorrow, heck, if they go into a playoff series and need him to murder Giannis Antetokounmpo, Keith Atkins would take that call in a second and get it done. Like you would never find out about it. Like maybe that's a little extreme. And I don't know if that's necessarily Heat culture so much as it is psychosis, but whatever. Like that's part of the fun, right? That's what defines this franchise. So Keith Atkins, again, he's another Heat lifer guy who just has done everything for this organization, from being a head coach to the general manager, Sioux Falls, to a special assistant, to an assistant coach, like a scout, you name it, everything. He's had his hands into everything Heat related here. And just a guy who, again, has worked his way up from nothing to be here. I don't know. We'll see. At this point, Bam, the more talented player, but I think Heat deserves the Heat culture. He is better for Heat culture. You gonna put it to a vote?
I don't know if I even have to go that far. You might have swayed me here.
Ooh.
You might have really swayed me because I'm trying to. Okay, so let me make the Bam argument. Works hard,
no doubt.
Humble, willing to do the work, willing to do whatever is asked of him. Right? I think all of that stuff is Heat culture. Yes. Right? There's Hartenstein in front of him. What are you gonna do? You know what? I'm a little groggy after a loss. Let's go with it. Askins over Bam Adebayo. Wow.
Ooh,
You convinced
wow.
me. That was a really good argument. All right, here's what we'll do, because we these out every morning after we do the show or whatever. Soon after we end up releasing the show, we'll put it to Twitter. And it's not always for a tiebreaker. Sometimes it's just for fun. We get 90% plus on Bam. Can we reverse it? Or are we just going to go? Are we going to stick with our? Are we just going to say, screw it, it's our bracket? We're going to keep that.
But we
Screw it,
have
it's
to
our
make
bracket. We're going
clear
to keep Askins.
we should.
It's
Like,
not
I
the
want to
most
make it
talented
clear.
player. It's the player
Yeah.
who represents Heat culture the most.
That's what I think. And maybe a lot of people that are young and didn't see Keith Askins play or didn't see him like he rose up to crazy ass Ron Artest when he got pissed off and started jawing at Pat Riley. And like he threw that clipboard down like in milliseconds to challenge Ron Artest. Like that was Udonis Haslem before Udonis Haslem. I don't know.
Well,
That's
speaking. Askins moves on. I'm good. Sorry, Bam. You're eliminated.
oh, wow.
It's also a young career. Bam's got more time. Maybe
Yes.
we'll do this bracket 20 years from now. He'll beat Keith Askins in the 3-10 matchup.
I hope we're not doing this 20 years from now.
We probably won't.
Ron Rothstein versus. What do you got, Ronnie? You're losing, Ronnie. That's what you got. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Ron Rothstein.
That was a good run.
Yeah,
it was a good
yeah,
one. You beat
very
Birdman
good
in the
run.
first round, and
Yes.
and then you get wow. What a couple of matchups of Ron Rothstein. Took down Birdman, then had to face Udonis Haslem. 2-seed Udonis Haslem. Haslem's going to go ahead.
The Cinderella story comes to an end. No glass slipper for Ron Rothstein.
Hold it right there. You're done. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember to subscribe for new episodes of Locked On Heat on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Hit that like button right now. Hold it right there. Now make your second listen game to game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. David, thanks for joining me.
Yeah. At least I should have. Oh man.